5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Blast off.
Blast off.
Hey, everyone.
Good morning.
I pray you guys are having a blessed morning, because for us, it's nighttime. For you guys, it's morning. And you guys are on your way to work, on your way to take the kids to school.
Or the gym.
Or you're just getting up and having some nice coffee. I wish I was there having coffee with you. That would be really nice.
Cadillac.
You can have a Cadillac.
So, welcome to our channel.
Yes, welcome.
Or podcast.
Bienvenidos a todos.
Make sure, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. I always say at the end. I don't want to say it right now.
Yeah, that's weird.
Because what if they don't like it?
I know. We should get the word in Spanish. Ahora sí van a aprender todos cómo hablar español.
How's your day today?
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was productive. Very productive. How was your day?
Productive. I was in a bunch of auto shops today.
I know. Thank you, babe. Just trying to get my car fixed.
Yeah. So we're getting closer to the problem. So
yeah,
that's a good thing.
That's a really, really good thing, because I haven't had my car in like 8-9 months, and I really miss my car.
Yeah, so I took it to the shop and got a professional diagnostic.
Nice.
And then he referred me to somewhere else, went there.
You want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
It was 5:10, and I'm like, how come he hasn't picked me up yet?
Are you serious?
I am sitting there saying, how come David hasn't picked me up, called me or messaged me to tell me you're there? I got off at 5, and I'm sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And I forgot that I actually took his car to work today. And the car was just sitting out there. I could have... It's almost... Here's the crazy thing. Have you guys ever seen a meme where there's a horse and he's tied up literally to one of those plastic chairs? And it's kind of like saying you're free to go. But the thing is, because we're so used to not being free to go, we just stay there. That's how I felt today. I felt kind of dumb. I'm like, I could have went home
10 minutes ago?
Over 12 minutes ago, and I was just sitting there waiting for my husband to get there, and I had the car all along.
My older son, Gabriel, stayed the night last night, so he had his car. Because I knew I was going to be going to the shop and taking the car and whatnot. So she took the car to work because my son was here with his car anyway.
Yeah. So David had an opportunity to be driven around for the first time, which was really cool. Because it's rare that he ever gets driven, and then he is the one always driving.
But I'm hoping my goal is to have that car fixed.
Yeah.
By this week.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we are in 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 4.
Yes.
I'm just going to go ahead and read it, and then we'll talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
David's reading it out of the New King James Version, and I will repeat it after under the Message version.
Yeah. Even though I don't like the word version, it's really a translation.
Translation.
No, you're saying it right, because NKJV, New King James Version. But I don't like that word, because version means as if there's different versions of the Bible. When in reality, there's different translations of the Bible.
How about I just say we're reading out in the New King James?
Yeah.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
All right.
So, chapter 2, verse 1. It says, Now the days of David drew near that he should die. And he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be strong, therefore, and prove yourself a man. And keep the charge of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, his judgments, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever you turn. Verse 4, that the Lord may fulfill his word, which he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons take heed to their way, to walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their soul, he said, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel.
In the Message, it says, when David's time to die approached, he charged his son Solomon, saying, I'm about to go the way of all the earth, but you be strong. Show what you're made of. Do what God tells you. Walk in the path he shows you. Follow the life map absolutely. Keep an eye out for the signpost. His course for life set out in the revelation to Moses. Then you'll get on well in whatever you do and wherever you go. Then God will confirm what he promised me when he said, if your sons watch their steps, staying true to me, heart and soul, you'll always have a successor on Israel's throne.
Yeah. So before we make this relevant, I want to talk about what's happening here. Mm-hmm. Is this the same King David or that killed Goliath when he was a young shepherd boy? He's the one that killed a giant. And he was now the king of Israel. Matter of fact, he was the second king of Israel, and he followed after God's heart. He loved the Lord. He wasn't a perfect man, but he loved God. Matter of fact, the Bible says that he was after God's own heart. That's why God loved him so much. So God was able to, even though through his mistakes, he knew David's heart, But now King David is now an old man. And you got to remember, the throne was taken away from King Saul and given to David. Mm-hmm. So now David's an old man. And I believe that his prayer was, Lord, let my sons be kings too. And my great, let the kingship stay within my bloodline.
Yeah, the legacy.
And I love the fact of God gave a promise to David.
Yeah.
Where he told him that he goes, as long as you teach your sons to walk in the ways of God, to keep the statutes of God, to keep the commandments of God, to keep his judgments and his testimonies, because that's what it says in the books of Moses, in the law of Moses, and that you will prosper. And how the Lord says, he goes, if your sons listen, and walk before me in truth with all their heart and with all their soul.
Yes.
Yeah, if they, he goes, then you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. In other words, he goes, if your children do this and your children's children, I will always leave your family lineage on the throne of Israel. That is a promise that God gave.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's conditions there.
Yeah, there is. But I'm glad that it kind of doesn't place it all just on King David.
Exactly.
It has to do with the sons as well. And taking heed is different than just making a choice. Taking heed, it's almost like he's giving a warning, and he's given that notice. It's almost like a not harsh, but it's a very stern notice to say, listen, if they take heed. Because how many times do we have and we see that people can raise their children in the things of the Lord and can do all of that and everything and do right on their part, but then they come to an age where they make the decision to walk away. They don't want that.
Yeah.
And taking heed is almost like a fair warning. Mm-hmm. Like saying, this is what I'm telling you, so you have a big choice to make.
Everybody has choices. We all have choices. We can raise our children in the best of environments, in the best, show them love, show them support, show them these things. That doesn't necessarily, unfortunately, even us ourselves, we grow up, we eventually make our own decisions. Mm-hmm. But I do want to say this. This is why it was so important in the Old Testament, why God would always say, listen, you need to teach your children the commandments. You need to teach your children the ways of God. You need to, so it's not like God was imposing all these rules. It was more like saying, it'd be like this. Hey, you need to teach your child not to run in the street. You need to teach your child not to stick a fork into the electrical thing. Mm-hmm. You need to teach your child, so you're not doing those to hinder them. You're actually saying those things to give them life.
Exactly.
So in that sense, that's the perspective we have to look at it. So God's not like, you got to do this and this and this. He's trying to give you something that's going to give you a good, peaceful life. Yeah. And so I want you to follow this scenario, right? let's say this is why it's so bad. Let's follow a family in the 50s, and you have this family, and this man, the father is an alcoholic, and the wife is always home, kind of like Leave It to Beaver show back in the day, But the father's an alcoholic. So what is he teaching his kids? So then his kids grow up in the 60s, and they start drinking like that. And because they're drinking and now they have an alcohol problem, so they go and get married, they get with somebody, and because of their drinking alcoholism, so now dad leaves. He has kids, and so now the son grows up and has kids, and he leaves them and abandons them. So now these kids grow up with no dad. And the memories they do have is dad being an alcoholic, right? So then they grow up with no dad. So they didn't have anybody to teach them to be a dad. So now in the 70s, or let's say early 80s now they're growing up. These are the grandkids now of the couple in the 50s. And their grandpa was an alcoholic. Their dad was an alcoholic and left them. They don't know what it's like to be a man. So now they grow up and have wives or girlfriends or whatever. They don't know how to take care of their women. They don't know how to do anything. And do you see what I'm getting? It's a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So now you go now into the 2020s and to follow that same generation. There's been no men to teach them. The girls that grow up had no dad. So
they don't know what they're supposed to be treated.
They don't know how they're supposed to be treated like. Yeah. So what do you think happens? Okay, so now in my culture, unfortunately, in my generation, a lot of people, and I'm not saying this for every culture, we all have our own, whether you're white or black or Latino or whatever, we have our things that are attached to us culturally. For instance, like, anyways, so people end up in prison, or people end up raising kids on their own, or people raise up being pregnant young, or people, all of this, it's a pattern that follows, okay? And then we have the audacity to blame God. When the whole time, if you backed it up, God said, if you follow my ways and teach your children these things, and you pass it along. See, if you follow that, this is why God is stating these things, because he's telling David, listen, as long as your children follow after me, I will keep them on the throne and I will be with them. But if they choose to follow something else, everything's going to go bad. And here's the thing, that now in 2020, God is taken out of the schools, prayers taken out of the schools, so now we're feeling the effects of it. And now we have a generation that says, oh, there is no God. He must not be loved. If there is a God, then he doesn't care about us and this and that.
They're very liberal thinking, and
and they blame God.
Yeah.
When he's like, wait a second.
There's no more reverence.
God's like, you took me out of the picture.
Yeah, there's no more reverence, for the things of the Lord.
So it's a snowball effect, and unfortunately, it's horrible, man, because, as we pastor a church in Modesto, and we're an inner city church. We're right in the smack center of the city.
Yeah.
Modesto it's a great city, great people, but at the same time, it's full of, and I'm sure it's the same as in your cities too, full of drug addiction, full of single parent families, full of gangs and drugs and violence and domestic violence. I mean, full of it. And we pastor in the city. And we have to deal, unfortunately, with a lot of people's problems that were started way before they were even given a chance.
Yeah.
We have women that say, I don't even know what it's like to be a woman or a mom or a wife. And you have men that say, nobody was there to teach me how to be a father, and it just creates chaos. So how do you explain to somebody how to be a woman or a man if they were never taught from before? And this is what David is saying here.
Yeah.
That's what he's telling them, and it's like, and I had people tell me, well, man, you're blessed, David, because your parents are Christians and your grandparents are Christians. And I said, yeah, but
I tell you that.
Yeah. And there is a blessing in that. But what if walking in the Lord, though, starts with you now? for your children? You know, what if we don't blame our parents or grandparents, but what if we start now with your children and your children's children? What if you begin it now?
You know, I get the sense where you say about a person not being able to fulfill or live certain parts of their life, you know, because I became a mom at the age of 14. And I went from being a young girl to being a mom, and I missed so much part of my life.
Yeah.
You know, that I never knew what it was like to even be a teenager. I was, you know, had my own apartment at 15 already, paying rent, paying bills. And I remember there'd be times where I'd look at my son. He's 17 now, but when he was 14, I'd look at him and I'd be like, oh my God, this kid doesn't even know how to fill out an application. He doesn't even know how to pay a bill. He doesn't even know how to make his own appointments to certain things, you know? And here I was, you know, doing all of that and coping on being an adult at such a young age, you know? And it was just crazy because there is those people that miss certain parts of their life and they don't know how to, so they try to relive it at a older age. And that's what's crazy sometimes. It's because, you know, for me, there's a lot of like things, and I'll be honest with you, when I was like 25, 30 years old, I was like still a mom of little ones, you know, but by the time I got to like 30, 35, I was like, I had that opportunity to go back and do a lot of the things that I missed out on. But by that time, I already knew Christ. So it was like my feet were grounded, and it was almost scary to go back and do those things, you know?
Yeah.
But some people are not scared. Some people, you know, are kind of older and they want to live out their young years.
Yeah, it's really weird to me. Sometimes I've told Sharon a few times, I'm like, you know, the life I lived before Christ, I see it as a good and a bad.
Yeah.
I see it bad because I wish I hadn't experienced some of the things I have experienced. But at the same time, I'm glad, because the reason I say that is I know a lot of people that they never did nothing wrong, and now they're married and all this and that. What do they call it? Midlife crisis?
Midlife crisis.
Midlife crisis. All of a sudden now, you know, it's the funniest thing, and I'm so sorry. I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody, but when I see older women in their 40s and 50s going out and partying like they're, you know, 22 or 21, it's just, to me, it's a grasp at grabbing something that maybe you didn't get to have. And the same thing with men. You know, when I see men that are my age and they're walking around dressed like a 20-year-old, like they're rappers, and it's just like, it's just the weirdest thing. And I know that probably sounds weird because you guys know that I've recorded Christian rap before, you know, but it's a different thing to go and be a rapper. I have done rap songs with my wife, but to portray a rapper at 48 is just a weird thing to me. And I don't know how to act, you know, I don't know how to act when I come across people like that. Because I got that out of my system, you know, a long time. I sold thousands of albums and did all that in my 20s and my early 30s, you know. And so I think in the same thing, and I think we're going off track here, but
No, not really.
No? Okay.
Not really. I think that's a good valid point, because I think there comes a time in our age where we really truly know the true meaning of modesty, or when we know certain things, and it's self-love. It's just love for yourself and respect for yourself, you know, because if you do that for yourself, others will do the same, and they'll follow suit, which I think is important, because if you want to be treated a certain way, then you gotta act a certain way, you know, and that's the thing. Everybody has their own reasons of why they do things, but if you want to be treated like a grown-up, if you want to be treated with respect, if you want to be treated professionally, then you're going to be you're going to be that, you know. But if you're going to be dressing unmodestly, if you're going to show everything off, if you're not going to save anything for your husband, if you're going to, you know, do certain things, then that's the way you're going to be portrayed. That's the way you're going to be seen. And it's unfortunate, because until a person's either gets offended or their heart hurts or they get heartbroken or they get told something is when they realize like, whoa,
Yeah.
This is pretty harsh, but the thing is that sometimes, I hate to say it, we're our worst enemies and we're the ones that put ourselves out there and we're the ones that ask for it sometimes. So we just got to be careful with the way we do things. Now, in regards to this too, I see something else in it.
In the scripture.
In the scripture, yeah. When it talks about, be strong, show what you're made of, do what God tells you, walk in the paths we show you, follow the life member, absolutely. And the fact that if your sons watch their step, staying true to my heart and soul, you'll always have a successor in Israel's home. When my son, Abraham's been doing the media, helping you with the media at the church for already going on 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah, that's quick. He was little when he was sitting back there helping you.
But it was more like he was assisting me, but
But by himself, he's been doing it 3 years.
Yeah?
Yes, 3 years already.
I didn't know that long.
So when he started helping him and everything, he started helping, and we kind of almost like obligated him, and we'd be like, it's the sound, you said you wanted to be responsible for the sound, and you said you wanted to do all of this. So we kind of, would tell him, you got to go. And that was a way of getting him to church as well. But it got to a point where Abraham was like, Mom, he's all, I really need a break from all of this. This is too much. And you know what? I respected it. I respected it because it was us that was asking of that from him.
Yeah.
And he was doing it for us. But see, I wanted my son to do it because it was something that he loved to do. Mm-hmm. And it was a choice that he actually made to do. But the thing is that it wasn't. So we relieved him of that, remember? We relieved him of that. We started to look for somebody else to do the media. And it didn't last very long. Within a week or two, he felt something missing. And he just kind of felt like, well, I need to be doing that. I should still be doing that, and it became later on his own choice. And now he sits there, he holds his position with high regard. He loves what he does. He takes it serious. And since now that we let him make the choice, he's more responsible over his whole department. He's more responsible about what he does. He'll actually call. He literally called, us a few days ago and asked, do you think I can have a vacation day? And we were like, yeah, sure. And now if he goes to visit his friend, he says, I got to be back by Saturday because I got to be there on Sunday. He's taking ownership and responsibility for something that he chose in God's kingdom, something that he chose to do unto God.
Yeah.
And to me, it's what they're saying here, if your sons watch their step, it's making a choice.
Yeah.
Staying true to me, heart, to me, it says to me, heart, and soul, you'll always have a successor on Israel's throne. And to me, what it does, it brings hope. I almost feel like David, it brings me hope to know that he finally made that decision on his own.
Yeah.
And I know that my son is being fed, and I know that he's going to grow. It's inevitable that he's going to grow because he's there. He pays attention. He listens to everything. So he's being fed. And because of that, I know that there's going to be a legacy.
Yeah.
I just know that there is.
Yeah. So it's like, it's really important. It's important because it's one thing for King David to be telling Solomon. It's another thing for Solomon to grow up seeing his dad worshiping God, seeing his dad praying, seeing his dad talking about the Lord, seeing his dad's success as a king. And then now Solomon, later, because David passes away, and Solomon has something to look at as a guide.
As a guidance, yeah.
No, so here's the thing, regardless of how your parents were, grandparents were, don't you want to be the guide for your children?
Yeah.
And I've said this to parents, and I know it probably hurts at the church sometimes because they were, they don't take fellowship serious. They don't take anything serious. They come, they go, they whatever. And I'm like, do you realize what you're teaching your children?
Yeah.
because they're going to follow what you do,
Yeah.
and it's like, it is what it is,
That's why we've said this before too, maybe at the beginning ones. That's why it's also so important what you say in front of your children as well.
Yeah.
Because if you have a bitter heart towards someone, if you have a disagreement with someone or anything, it's important to keep that away from your children. Do you know how many times we've had teenagers that maybe their parents have disagreed with us and everything, and then you see it in their kids because now their kids don't even talk to us.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's crazy.
It's sad and
because
funny.
It's really sad because you can see it in a child when a child all of a sudden cuts and doesn't talk to you or something, and you're just like, wow. But then you realize where they get that from.
Yeah.
And that's really, really sad because don't put that on them.
Yeah.
Don't put that on your children. That's a lot for a child to carry, when they don't even understand why they're being bitter, why they're being upset, when they don't even understand why their heart is what they're feeling towards this person. Yeah. It's like they're living your feelings and your thoughts and your emotions instead of living the person that they are.
Well, I mean, I've said it before. I said it in my testimony, that I went to elementary and it was kindergarten to 5th grade. And these are kids I grew up with in the kindergarten. I played with them in 1st grade. All of a sudden in 2nd and 3rd, they called me wetback and beaner and taco eater, and that was very hurtful. Yeah. But now as an adult, where did they learn that from?
Yeah.
Where did these kids that were my friends? Every day we played on the playground. Every day we played in the bars and kickball. Now all of a sudden, and now I look back and I'm like, shame on their parents. Because my dad did not teach me the difference. He didn't tell me, oh, those are black, those are white, I never had a conversation like that ever in my childhood. So when I it was weird because I think back to kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, I didn't know the difference from anybody. I didn't even see it until they started seeing it in me.
Yeah.
And so it's, people are going to learn what they learn at home.
Yeah.
Now I look back and I'm like, shame on their parents.
Yeah.
It wasn't those kids' fault. You know?
And that's one thing that I do love, the fact that there's people, there's just things that there's been disagreements and all of that. And I love to see my son over there speaking to them. Or I love seeing my son interact. You know why? Because we kept him away from that. Yeah. And that's why he can continue being his own person and do all of that, is because, if a person feels, I say this because as pastors, we're going to come across a lot of different situations, a lot of times that people don't agree with correction, with people don't agree with, saying, hey, maybe you should do things differently or think things through or something, and people disagree and they kind of get bitter towards you over something. But here's the thing, we don't bring that onto our kids and start talking to other people in front of our kids to where our kids are going to become bitter towards that person.
Yeah, well, here's, it's not hurting anybody but your kids.
Yeah, it is.
I remember, my dad accepted Christ when I was 8, my mom when I was 5. So when I was 5, I would go to church with my mom. 3 years later, my dad surrendered his life to the Lord. And in that period from the time I was 8 till the time I was maybe 16, 15, I didn't want to go to church anymore because I wanted to be with my homeboys. But that was a good 7 years. And through those 7 years of going to church with my parents, because I kind of had to, there's a couple times where my parents would switch churches. And they never told me anything. They weren't like, oh, I can't believe the pastor this or that. They tell me get ready for church.
Where you go.
I'd get up on Sunday because my dad would say, like, get ready. It's time for church. I'd get up, get ready. We'd pull up into some other church. I'm like, what happened? He goes, oh, no, we're coming here now. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? Never. Matter of fact, not even through my 20s when I wasn't surrendered. It wasn't until later in the last few years that I sit down with my parents and I said, why did we change churches? And then, because I'm a pastor now, of course, now they can share, well, because this happened and this happened, and we don't want to be in that environment, and we don't want you guys to be in an environment. But it's like, I said, why didn't you tell me that? He goes, what if we would have told you every time and you would have not wanted to serve God now because you would have said, oh,
it's all full of hypocrites, is this,
exactly.
is that, and it's certain ways.
My parents saved me.
Yeah. The heartache and all that.
So, adult stuff is meant for adults.
And, that goes also, I have to say this because I'm a woman and I can say it. Ladies, stop using your children against your exes, their dads, all of that, because it's very hurtful and it's very, very, very dangerous for a child. My son grew up. Abraham grew up without his dad. We didn't know for a long time whether he was alive or dead or any of that. And he wasn't the best father. But I'll tell you one thing that I never poisoned his mind to say what a bad father he was. Or, he doesn't give you that anyways. And he's never there for you. And da-da-da-da-da. You don't do that to them. What I did is I allowed my son to grow up to a point where we did look for his father. We found him. And his father made empty promises. And even though my son had to go through a little bit of heartbreak, but he had to see for himself. Yeah. It's not something that I came in and I had to put all that doubt in him and plant the seed of doubt or any of that. You don't want to do that because that's still their father, and you want the best for your child, and your child needs the support of both parents. Whether or not they live with them or whether or not they don't, it's important to teach your children and let your children learn those things on their own instead of you poisoning, because later on what's going to happen, they will grow up to resent you. The day that, the father comes and the father ends up being a great person that your child falls in love with, and he missed out on all those years and all that time because of all the negative.
Yeah.
And all that time he could have spent with one of his parents. And that goes vice versa for women and men too, because it's in both situations. And nowadays you have a lot of single parents, a lot of single fathers. So we got to be very, very careful with what we put into our children's mind and heart. Yeah,
because, and I know this isn't going in every case, but sometimes maybe a guy ain't so great being in a relationship with you, but maybe he's an amazing dad.
Exactly. Give him a chance to be.
And it's like...
and give her a chance to be too.
Yeah, just because somebody didn't work out with you doesn't mean they're not going to work out with your kids. And it's like, it's just the way it is. And
yeah.
But, I think this is a good subject. It's a good passage to talk about. I think it's important. Overall, in summary, teach your kids the things of God.
Yeah.
And teach them to teach their kids later. Be like, there's nothing wrong with telling a child because they will remember. There's things that my mom and dad told me as a child that I remember now. So it's okay to tell them, hey, everything I'm teaching you, I want you to teach to your kids. Say that always. Hey, what I'm teaching you, I want you to teach it to your kids.
And when you teach a child, and when you teach your children, period, whether they be little, whether they be teenagers, it doesn't matter. When you teach your child and your children learn, then when it's time to make a choice, it's not that hard of a choice anymore. It becomes part of their life. It becomes like something so familiar to them that it's not a big choice. And they're like, wow, how can I not choose that? Because this is what I've grown up with. This is what I've seen. Of course I want that.
Yeah.
So that choice becomes so much easier for them. You have just saved them of them having to think that they've, made the wrong choice. And then it actually is what directs their life down a wrong path. Give them the opportunity to make a choice and not to make it hard on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. I had a few people don't know how to get to the podcast, so I just wanted to walk them through real quick.
Yeah.
Now, the easiest way, guys, is start off in our website. houseofrestchurch.com. This is how it looks. I'm using a tablet so it's easier to see, but this is how your phone will look. And here you have House of Rest. Here you have Periclitos Media, shirts, and Soul Riders. It's a podcast. You clicked on the media page. Oh, there it goes. And it goes to this. See this list right here? Those are all podcasts, different podcast platforms.
You can also get to all the YouTubes on this one too, huh?
Yeah, I'll show them that too. So actually it says Spotify, Breaker, Anchor, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public. These are all platforms that have our podcast. But let's say I'm going to click on the first one, which is Spotify. You click it. Did I click it?
Yeah, it's just taking a moment to load, I think.
Wait. There it goes. Boom, that's Spotify. Yay!
Yay!
See all this? Oh, look, you can see the reflection. See those lights? That's what we use to light up the room. Yay. But these are all the little podcasts you can listen to. If I click on one, say this one. If I click, I'm trying to do this backwards, guys, because I'm looking at you guys, but
You ain't looking at them, not right there.
I know. Oh, see, I clicked on one. That's a sermon. I click play. See, it's that green button says play. And it should start.
If you haven't heard about Anchor,
See, there it goes.
It's the easiest way to make a podcast.
So, that's how you do that.
Voila.
Yeah. You know, if you go back to the website, you can watch our YouTube. Well, if they're watching YouTube, they know how to get to YouTube.
I know, right? Well, I mean, through there too, if they ever wanted to start from the beginning
If you ever
because
wanna
they
tell
just
people-
barely came in, you know?
Yeah, go to our website, and right up here, it says YouTube. It says YouTube channel. Click on that.
And you can go all the way to the first devotional that was ever done. We're already on
See?
200 and something.
Look, all the YouTube videos, all right here, down here. There's a bunch of them. Guys, I can't use this backwards. It's weird.
But we pray you have a beautiful, beautiful, blessed day. And
Yeah.
hasta luego, everybody.
God bless you. Now you can give a thumbs up. Now you can leave a comment. We want to see your comment. And if you're following on podcast, then follow. If you're on YouTube, subscribe.
Mari, thank you for your message today by text. I got it at work, and it really blessed my heart to get your message today.
Amen.
You know, yeah, it really did. There was some amazing comments today. I only have like an hour for lunch, which is normal, but a lot of the times I'll try to spend some time eating, and then I'll quickly go on and I'll be able to read your guys' comments and comment on some. But that's what I love to do. And then I'll listen to one of David's 4 or 5 minute podcasts.
You heard today's?
No, not today, because I had to talk to the owner. But yeah, but guys, I love reading them. It really does make my day, and I'm able to reply to some of you.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
And finally, Monday through Friday, I do that random thought, 4 or 5 minute thing.
Nice.
And the only place you're going to get that is not on YouTube, it's on the podcast.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. See you later. We love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.